How much better can LSU's defensive line get? A Hall of Fame coach weighs in. You'll hear his answer today. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Matt McMahon and LSU basketball land a top 100 commit, their second top 100 commit for the class of 2025. We'll get to that, but we are going to talk some defense. As you know, LSU is headed into its first of two open dates, and it's a good opportunity as Brian Kelly didn't meet with reporters on Monday. We won't get player interviews on Tuesday. The only media availability we'll have of Brian Kelly this week is on Wednesday on the SEC coaches teleconference. So it's kind of a good opportunity to pull back, take the 10,000-foot view and assess where LSU was, where they are, and where they might be able to go still here in the 2024 football season. And, you know, before the season started, you'll recall the single biggest question mark on this team was the interior defensive line. Now, that isn't what's manifest as of this point, but remember, that's not just me saying it. That's not a fan narrative. That's not media. That's not anything other than Brian Kelly. After the spring game, when he was asked, said the one position they were looking at in the transfer portal was interior defensive line. And, man, they went after two big-time defensive tackles, one from TCU, one from Michigan State. We know the story by now, and they came up snake eyes. They ended up getting Gio Paez from Wisconsin, JVR Suggs from Grand Valley State, and they've had to count on a lot of young guys to step up, especially with the injury to Jacoby and Guillory. But as we've gone through the first 5 weeks of this season, one thing that's been abundantly clear is while LSU's interior defensive linemen may not be the stat stuffers of this defensive group, they have played very well. I had a chance to visit with Pete Jenkins, and everybody I think by now who's in LSU circles knows Coach Pete. He's a legendary defensive line coach. He's in his 80s. He's had 4 different stints now, if my math is correct, at LSU. First in the 80s, he then was here for a decade, came back with Nick Saban when Nick first got to LSU in 2000. When Ed Ogeron was hired as the interim head coach, he brought Pete Jenkins with him out of retirement. And then just a year ago, when LSU had the debacle against Ole Miss, Brian Kelly went and called on Pete Jenkins and brought him out of retirement once again, starting with the Missouri game and going through the remainder of the season. He's also coached the Philadelphia Eagles. He is widely regarded, if you're not familiar with Coach Pete, he is widely regarded in football circles as the greatest defensive line coach in the history of the game. That's not hyperbole. That is a recognition and an honor that he has and is widely bestowed upon him. And his tree, sort of his coaching tree at that position, is long and distinguished. And still to this day, every year in the spring, Coach Pete has a list of some of the biggest programs in college football that bring him in to consult, from LSU and Alabama and Kirby at Georgia and Dan Lanning at Oregon and Oklahoma and places all over. He travels the country to consult defensive line. So he is still very much present in the game and very much loves LSU. And I'm very, very lucky to call Coach Pete a friend. And when I call on him, we're able to talk, and I learn more about football just talking with Pete Jenkins for 5 minutes. I shouldn't even say talking. I should say listening, because I don't even want to talk. I just want to listen to what he has to say. And keeping in mind that Pete Jenkins was part of this program a year ago, he does know a lot of those defensive players. He was there working with him for part of the season a year ago. Now, the freshmen that have emerged, he doesn't know, but it's also worth mentioning that Bo Davis, LSU's defensive line coach, is part of the Pete Jenkins tree. Bo played at LSU under Pete Jenkins, worked with him on staff when Pete Jenkins was the defensive line coach under Nick Saban. Bo was a young coach on staff back at LSU in 2000, and they still talk all the time, as you'll hear. I had a chance on Monday to spend a good 20, 25 minutes with Pete Jenkins. And I want to play a few small excerpts of this conversation that I had with Pete Jenkins. Now, I will tell you, if you want to hear the full conversation, it's from my radio show, After Further Review, YouTube podcast. Just search After Further Review, and you'll get the entire 20-minute conversation right there. But I wanted to pluck out a few things that I thought were relevant we can talk about. First of all, I asked Coach Pete from where they were game one, the thing I just said to you, from where they were game one to where they are now, how much has this defensive line improved?
You know, those two guys, Kevin Peoples and Bo Davis, we're very lucky to have them at LSU. They're really good. You could look the country over and not find two better ones than those guys right there. And that's what I told Coach Kelly. I've been working with both of them for years and watching their progress and watching them grow as coaches. They're highly motivated guys, both of them, and they are extremely prideful guys. Bo yesterday, Matt, was better than he's been since the day he came to LSU. He's been so disappointed in the product on the field, the play of the product. And I think he told me yesterday, let me start it by telling you this. I told him, I said, Bo, when I went in there last year, I wanted to do it bad. I wanted to improve our situation as bad as I've ever wanted to do anything. But what I had to learn to live with was the time involved and everything. I was never able to get them real good. So what I became interested in doing is getting them better each week. And that's how I had to kind of temper I couldn't get them where I wanted. But I worked hard for improvement each week. And to see them do things that help the scheme and help the defense and does help the Tigers. Well, that's where I think Bo, I think I got Bo in that position, to tell you the truth. He saw improvement. He's been seeing improvement. And he was really in the ditch for quite a while there and everything. But I think this, man, he sees improvement, and he says to me, the guys, the players are really trying hard. It's important for them to do it. So when you get that as a coach, you know, you can live with that. The guys that I had last year wanted they wanted to be good, really bad. But we got better. We got better. And that's what Bo's got to live with. Now, Kevin's a little bit different situation. He's got a few more athletic guys at his position. But I see them getting better also. So I think we're coming, you know, and I don't think we're good. I think we're better.
That might be the quote of the entire interview. I don't think we're good. I think we're better. Now, the obvious follow-up is, okay, you're not good, but you're better. How much better can they get? And we're going to tackle that very real question with Pete Jenkins when we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Roy. Excited to tell you about Roy, and it's time to highlight my Roy Player of the Week. So Roy is a new platform that lets fans make contributions directly to their favorite athletes. We've been telling you about Roy. You can download Roy for iOS or Android, and you can enter the referral code Locked On, and you're automatically entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited, but y'all, all you have to do is enter, and you're into a drawing for $5,000 cash. This week, we have selected the incredible Caden Durham. So we are giving Caden Durham $100 on Roy. If you were impressed as we were with his performance on Saturday, you can show him some love too. Jump on the Roy. Just hop on Roy. You can throw in a few bucks. If everyone pitches in $10, it adds up fast for Caden Durham or any player. So now you have the chance to show your appreciation for Caden Durham for his standout performance this week, his 2 touchdowns for the Tigers, as well as what will continue to bring the Tiger program. So get off the sidelines and get into the NIL game with Roy. So Pete Jenkins, you heard him talk about maybe how far this team has come from week 1 to now. It's pretty obvious to ask the follow-up, okay, 7 games to go with good coaching. How much better can they be?
I don't think they're going to be like some of them I've been around, but they can get better. And from what they got the coaching, and from what Bo and Kevin tell me, they got the want to. So you put those two together. I talked to Christian Lockiter about, a couple of hours ago. He is a perfect example, Matt. Christian, God bless him. He's like me. He was non-athletic, okay? And he couldn't run, I never told him that when he was playing, right. Of course. But,
I'm gonna make sure I tell him that.
Well, he knows I feel that way.
Yeah.
But look, I he and Greg Gilmore, two guys that were a challenge for me coaching. But listen, in that senior year, then Christian had 7.5 sacks and Greg had 8.
Mm-hmm.
They played so hard, and they took coaching, and they were prideful guys too. They wanted to be LSU defensive linemen. They wanted to uphold the tradition that we had in that room. And I don't know the kids now because I know the ends better than I know the tackles, but you got to have that want to get you a long way, man. It gets you a long way. And one of the reasons that I left LSU satisfied, Coach asked me, he said, if you'll come and help us make the opponent punt 2 or 3 times in a game, we have a chance to win the game because our offense is that good. And of course, it's kind of showing up in pro football too, isn't it? I mean, yeah. Jake's killing it, man.
How about that?
He looks just like he did in college. I mean, that's like Henry Thomas. First time I ever saw Henry Thomas play was in an exhibition game at New Orleans, preseason. And he looked just like he did. And I looked at Donna, my wife, and I said, that watching him, he looks just like he did playing at LSU last year.
Yeah.
And some guys make that transition much quicker than others. Jaden looks right at home to me in the NFL. I mean, that guy's playing at a high level. I'm so happy and proud for him.
Yeah.
And the receivers are doing good too. But so the sun was going down. We're playing Texas A&M, and someone tells me on the sideline, they said, today, Coach, in the game, A&M had 5 3-and-outs. And I thought, well, we got done with Coach Kelly.
It was a modest goal. If you can make that was life with Jaden Daniels. You can make a punt a couple of times a game. We got a shot, but that's what you couldn't do against Ole Miss, and it cost you the game. Now, I think LSU defensively is looking for a little more than just make them punt a few times, and you obviously have really tough challenges ahead with some offenses you're going to face. Ole Miss, the next one you're going to face. By the way, we did get word on Monday that LSU Ole Miss is going to be 6:30 p.m. and everyone should be super fired up about that. Primetime, Tiger Stadium on ABC. It will be a full throat because remember, this is provided Ole Miss wins this week. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but provided Ole Miss goes and wins against South Carolina, and that is a big ask because, look, Ole Miss just played a very physical Kentucky team and lost. And now they got to go on the road and play South Carolina, which LSU fans know pretty well. That is a defense that will come up and pop you. And by the way, South Carolina didn't play last weekend. So South Carolina had a week off to get ready for Ole Miss while Ole Miss went and played a 20-17 war against Kentucky. Now they got to go on the road and take on South Carolina and then come on the road and take on LSU, who will be coming off a bye. Told you, the spot. It's one of the reasons I liked LSU in that game from the beginning of the season was the spot on the schedule. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but it is a 6:30 p.m. game. Now, one other thing I asked Coach Pete about that I wanted you to hear was specifically about players. I started by asking him specifically about Ahmad Bro, the freshman who's gotten an awful lot of praise, and rightfully so. And then Coach Pete just started, and he talked not only about Ahmad Bro, because I'd asked him about Bro and McKinley. So he didn't know Dom McKinley, but he said he talked a lot about Ahmad Bro. And then he also talked about Braden Swinson, Paris Shand, and Savion Jones. You're going to hear him refer to guys by their jersey number, just more how he knows them, not coaching the team right now. But you'll understand that as he gets into this. But he starts though with this comment about the freshman Ahmad Bro.
I think Bro's a future star for the Tigers. From what I hear, both talk about him. He's a tough guy too. He's a guy that enjoys smacking people around, and that's important. I don't think there's quite enough of that in Bo's room. Listen to him talk, but Ahmad Bro from Ruston is a guy that I can tell it in Bo's voice when he talks about him. He's a guy that's he's a tough guy. He's a guy that enjoys that when you play defensive tackle, But I'm not sure. I can't comment on the other boy. I'm not sure. And I've seen the guys at 31 made a really nice move against. He got a sack. It wasn't last week. It was the week before.
Right. It was against UCLA.
He had a really nice swat and swim. And there, I'm beginning to see a little coaching taking on these guys, and I feel encouraged. I don't feel good. I feel encouraged that they're getting better, and I think the ends are getting better too. I think they're playing 6. They played outside backer last
year. Number 6.
Yeah.
What's Jordan Allen?
4.
Oh, 4. Well, Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins is the one who got hurt.
No, not Harold. The one that played outside backer last year.
You're talking about Braden Swinson.
Swinson, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, I think Swinson's come a long way this year. The thing with Swinson last year, he rushed past the quarterback a lot. He was, and that's a guy. He can be over there sitting on the bench with me. Once you get pushed by the quarterback, all that property is worth nothing back there, and really you're playing with 10. It's one of my pet peeves to see guys get pushed by the quarterback, because you like I say, if you get pushed by the quarterback, then the defense is playing with 10 guys because you ain't no good to them for nothing. So, but I see him turning the edge, and he's become a pretty good dadgum pass rusher. He always had some physical skills, but I think Kevin's helped him a lot, to be honest with you. I think he's a good player. And they moved Zero Harris.
Mm-hmm.
They moved him in there to 3 technique. He's playing 3 technique some. And he's not physically the body that you want in there. But he's a guy that will give you everything he's got.
Yeah.
And a smart guy. So, last year it was my fault to move 35 in there because we were short. I had 3 tackles. If I get one hurt, if I get one hurt, it means that I got 2 guys playing, and I don't know what's going to happen if I haven't done the injury. So I moved 35. I wasted 2 weeks of his life and 2 weeks of mine moving him in there. The better move was moving Paris in there. He's better equipped to play in there than 35 is. 35 is happier and better at defensive end. And he went in there, he moved in there like I asked him to and everything, but it wasn't to his liking, to be honest with you. And I think Parrish has accepted that role and wants to do good at it. So that was a good move by Bo and those guys this year to move Parrish in there. He'll fight you, and he needs a little more lead in his pencil, but he's a prideful guy. He is.
It is worth mentioning, as Coach Pete said, we're not good, but we're better. Just keep in mind, here's your leading tacklers this year at LSU. Whit Weeks, Greg Penn, Major Burns, Savion Jones, Ashton Stamps, Braden Swinson, Harold Perkins, Deshaun Spears, Sage Ryan, Jordan Allen, then Gio Paez. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Your 11th leading tackler on the team is Gio Paez with 10 tackles, 1.5 TFLs, a half a sack, a quarterback hurry. Followed by Paris Shand, and then Jordan Gilbert, Zay Alexander, PJ Woodland, Gabe Relaford, then Ahmad Bro with 7 tackles. Point is, these guys on the defensive front aren't going to be the group that stuffs the stat sheet. They're not going to be the Glenn Dorseys or the Michael Brockers or the guys that are Benny Logan or Drake Nevis or Claude Roten, or run through any of the list of former All-American interior defensive linemen from LSU. They just don't have those guys. But what you have are guys that are playing hard, that are getting better at being gap sound, and they're allowing your linebackers to go make plays. And certainly, as you can tell there, with Whit Weeks and Greg Penn and Major Burns in that star role, Savion Jones, they're doing the best they can. And they're going to keep getting better. You might have a lower ceiling on this group, but boy, the cavalry's on the way. I know people are sick of hearing that, but Ahmad Bro is a really good player. Is going to be. You heard Coach Pete say he can be a star. Can be a star. Dominic McKinley is a guy with a super high ceiling. You got 4 defensive tackles already committed for the class of 2025, and you may end up adding the number 1 player in the country for 26, reclassifying to 25, and Jakeem Stewart, who could be on campus next year. Point is, the infusion of talent is on the way, but you're maximizing guys right now because you have really good coaches at those positions. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Coach Pete Jenkins. Let me knock out our final little break here. And when we come back, I do want to get a quick basketball note in, as it was a big get for Matt McMahon. I'll give you a little thumbnail on it next. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You want to bet on the Tigers? They're idle this weekend, but maybe a week from Saturday whenever they take on Ole Miss, or you want to get that bet locked in now, you can do it over at FanDuel. Maybe you're an NFL Sunday guy, you could do that as well. Or lady, shout out to all the ladies who watch Locked on LSU. You could do it. You can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Matt McMahon and his program landed another big-time commitment on Monday. It came in the player of Mozzie Mosley, and he is, if you're not familiar, he's a 6'5", 170-pound shooting guard out of California who just transferred now. He's out of La Canada, Flint Ridge. It's spelled Canada. I don't know if it's La Canada. Maybe. I don't know all about that. But La Canada, Flint Ridge. Let's say that. And he's transferring for his senior year to Montverde in Florida. Now, that should sound familiar because Montverde is basically in one of those factory type schools down in Florida. And that's where Ben Simmons ended up playing his high school ball before he came to LSU as well. So Montverde has had a nice little pipeline to LSU with a couple of players here in the past several years who've landed in Baton Rouge. But Mosley is the next one. And he picked LSU over a slew of offers from big time programs. Southern Cal, Iowa, Michigan, Xavier, Cal, San Diego State, Arizona State, Washington. So some big-time offers there. And if you look at the recruiting profile over at On3, he is a high 4-star shooting guard, the number 62 overall prospect in the country, the 18th best shooting guard, 13th best player in Florida. As a matter of fact, Rivals has him as the 40th overall player and the 11th best shooting guard. So it's as high as he is ranked. But for Matt McMahon and the Tigers now, that is 2 top 100 players now for the class of 2025. I had a chance on Saturday night. I bumped into Tasman Mitchell, of course, former LSU great, who is now a member of Matt McMahon's staff. And we were talking a little bit about this squad. And he acknowledged what I think everybody knows at this point, which was year one was effectively a punt. You just had to get through it with all of the questions and all the uncertainty around the investigation. Would you have scholarship restrictions? Would you have a postseason ban? It was hard to recruit against that as well. Remember, Matt McMahon, within 2 weeks of taking the job, had no scholarship players on his roster. I mean, they just had to get through that first year, as bad as it was. And then last year, they got to 500. in league play and made postseason play in the NIT. Well, now you look at this roster this year, and this is a roster capable of being an NCAA tournament team. Like this team, I don't know that they can go on a run or anything like that, but this is a team that should hear its name called on Selection Sunday. And then you can continue to see how they're building upon this. This is now the second prospect committed for the class of 2025. Matt Gillul of the class of 2025 is already committed for LSU. So that's 2 top 100 prospects now for Matt McMahon for the class of 2025. And it's encouraging because they'll continue adding more. Gillul, who we talked about here, Matt Gillul, who's the number 1 player out of the state of Pennsylvania. He's a big 6'10" power forward. He's a stretch forward who can step back and shoot the 3. Some of his footage is really impressive, and you could just tell Matt McMahon is building a roster of talented players, and they're going to have a much higher ceiling. So I know it's football season, but it's worth throwing in a morsel here, a nugget on basketball when you get it, as the Tigers just started practicing, and you're about a month away from tipping off the regular season. We'll keep you posted as they move along. But a big get there for Matt McMahon and his squad for 2025. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for us here on today's edition of Locked on LSU. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Of course, we always appreciate those everydayers who are here with us every single day. Now, for your second listen, go check out Locked on College Football. We got it linked in the description here of this episode. You don't even need to go search for it. It's right there in the description. All right, that'll do it for us here. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you are on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And please be sure to let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.